competing in, we are believing in. It's time for us to shift our mind from best in the world to best for the world. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. It creates a new world to mind a shift, intentionality, perceptuality, conceptuality. We are choosing to shift our mind to best for the world, best for our world. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional.
Hello and welcome to this show we're having now. For 1 hour we're going to have a conversation about leadership, and I have Stellan Nordahl here in the studio.
Thank you very much. It will be very interesting to have a dialogue with you, Maria. We have known each other for a couple of years, but I don't believe since we had this idea a couple of years ago called the Teddy Talk, Teddy Talkings, which was fantastic conversations, and since that we haven't had a deeper conversation, I guess.
No, I don't think so, really. And now we're going to speak about courageous leadership. I have been sending before, and it was interesting because we were having conversations about work life today and what is missing. And that was, they nailed it. It is courageous leadership. So it was fascinating that I had already decided together with Yasmin Arhan Modén, who's going to call in soon.
Okay.
So we decided to her that it's going to be courageous leadership that is the topic for now.
Yeah.
So I'm happy you're joining in as well. So tell me, Stellan, you have been working with a lot of corporations and
that's right.
And
very often with a topic on it called either leadership, team development or business development. So I've been working with those topics for 13, 14 years. And I guess that I have a problem with leadership.
what's the problem?
Yeah, that's the problem. Okay, so saying leadership implies leading or be led. And it doesn't have to be that way, of course, but mostly it is. And that, for me, who are working with intentional decisions, which means being aware that there is a choice, and consciously having some kind of a framework on ethical framework on how you choose, and then intentionally choose. For me, it's there is a dissonance with the word leadership as we use it.
Interesting. So So when we're speaking about leadership, we're thinking there is some followers. So leadership doesn't exist without followers. And for me, leadership is actually knowing when you're supposed to follow.
Yeah, and when you're supposed to lead, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So it's something about for me, leadership is more of a dance and stepping in or out.
I like that.
And knowing when to step in or when to step out, and knowing that you always are a choice to leadership. So I mean, even though you're not leading a room, you can still practice leadership.
Oh yeah, definitely, and both as an attitude and as what you're saying is more or less another assumption on how leadership works than, I guess, the predominant. Today, up until recently at least, I realized yesterday in another coffee table talk that when we talk about the existing paradigm, we might now call it the old paradigm, as it is clear that it won't look the same any longer. And by saying that, I would say that it used to be at least something that the predominant view of leadership was following or being the leader. But I like your definition.
Yeah, I think it's, I also teach in leadership, and a lot of the leadership theories, they derive from the 1930s when we had the first studies on what is the best leadership, and we have the democratic ones, the authoritative or leaders. So it was really and then it's been progressing. So in different decades, I would say there's certain leadership styles that have been on agenda. They've been talking about
probably both in this last century, but when looking back, I also believe that it was more pragmatic view on leadership. I mean, parenting is one side of it. That's a kind of a leadership, and there are also other kinds of leadership.
Yeah, that's interesting you're saying parenting, because I think in the past we have been thinking about leadership, sometimes also blurred management with leadership, or actually it was management. And then I think in the 21st century we have gone into leadership as a vision, and we have the business person who becomes a leader for, usually it's his organization, like you may have Steve Jobs, and having certain kind of characteristics for leadership, knowing their vision, being aligned with their mission.
And what you are actually pointing at there is the one of the issues with the leadership as something that is a man practicing, which I believe is again maybe something we have to move from.
I think we have Jasmine.
I
right?
Yes.
Hi.
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome. I was hearing something
Thank you.
there.
I heard some. I'm here.
I didn't know.
Not trying to take a lead.
Yeah. And Jasmine, you are the CEO and founder of Altitude Meetings.
Yes.
Which is a company that for me really are representing the leading edge on when it comes to thinking in terms of how to create innovative meetings, an environment where meetings can thrive in a new way. So tell us a little bit more about your background in understanding leadership and what you do.
Okay, just briefly, my company is on paper, so to say. We are doing conferences and meetings. We have this huge conference venue, presently not used at all, at least not physically. We are trying to adapt to the new reality and finding new ways to do all the types of conferences and meetings and whatever you have in a digital way. So we've changed quite fast, 5 last weeks actually. But anyways, our company is, I just want to mention that the kind of the vision of the company is more to try to change and create a better world for locally and globally. So we're working a lot with environmental issues and sustainability, both social and obviously climate. And we are using the meetings in all forms to actually as our tools. So for us, the meetings are just tools, but well designed, they are very well, they can accomplish everything. And especially in these times, we believe that it's even more important to meet, maybe not physically again, but to continue to talk and to be actually brave and not just put your head in the sand and hope that everything will go away, but actually dare to talk about things. And as you were mentioning, both of you, that we are probably just right now in this big paradigm shift, and we will understand that when we're on the other side, but actually grasping that moment now so we can actually affect it. So it's not the bad guys coming out of this, and taking the lead. I think we'll see two two sides of the story here, and then I hope that the good guys will win on the when we're over this.
Okay.
So, but I think it's really important in when you were mentioning leadership and leading. I think that's one of the most important things, to actually to push and dare the whole time to speak your mind and give voices to those that doesn't have that many platforms to talk or be seen, to actually give them a platform so we can push in the right direction. And I think that's a lot of what I see when I talk about leadership. I think it's a lot about being brave and being vulnerable.
And I think also the corona crisis time we're just currently happening to us, it's also highlighting how you show up as a leader, because I'm meeting people who seems to hide and avoid and just cancel everything, and then we have those who stay in the game. We just have to change the way
format,
we're playing.
the formats, And also, I would say there is one more step, and that is seizing opportunities or creating opportunities, maybe.
Yes.
And that, of course, puts you in a position where you have to really think new thoughts, thoughts that maybe haven't had, or maybe you've had them but you haven't performed them yet. So this is a time for applying those thoughts, I would say.
How do you see, Yasmin, in the meeting you're having with your customers and the leaders around you, other companies?
How I see them behave now in this present situation? Oh, I think it's as Stellan said, it's a lot of different ways. Both the ones that are really afraid and don't want to even talk about the future, and they are just panicked and just stop doing whatever. They're not doing anything. You have people that are just trying to adapt, but they are not very brave. So they are not. They are. I mean, I think we could seize the moment as well. I mean, even though it's frightening in one way, I mean, you can actually already see things that could be much better thanks to this crisis, environmental issues, or, rethinking how you actually do use the time to meet or whatever. So there's a lot of opportunities, but I see a lot of people trying to, adapt through not using all the expertise there's out there and trying to find new solutions by themselves. And we are, the whole DNA in altitude meetings are cooperation. We love to cooperate and opening up for all types of thinking and discussions and what you have to actually find new ways forward. And I do believe, or I do see a lot of people that are trying more, they just, it's like what we see the countries are doing. They're just closing, and they do think that they will solve it by themselves. And I think that's totally wrong way to go. I think we should just open up much more.
Yeah, the fear is sort of contracting them, and they isolate themselves and create a separation instead of connecting.
But I also hear you saying something. I don't know if that was you're saying, but I find it interesting anyway, and that is we can call it again an opportunity to co-create together. We can call it the customer and the one with the service, in this case your meetings, and actually organize them together in maybe another way that it would have been a month ago or a year ago, but also trying new ways together. That's an experiencing we're sharing then, the ones that provide the service and the tool, as you call it, and the one that needs that service or the tool. So we're actually having an opportunity to create together.
I do believe so. And it's just very interesting to see, just to mention how and what the possibilities of digital meetings actually open up, because what we see for these, I mean, we have done it for 5 weeks, so it's not like we've done it for, a decade, but what we're already seeing is that we get much more real conversations, real interactivity. People are much more involved, and we can reach out to so many more people then we didn't. I mean, you know, when you have a physical meeting, we've always loved them because it's people getting close to each other, but you can't really, as a facilitator or moderator, get into their skin, not all of them at least. But through the digital meetings, people can tend to open up in a different way, especially those who might not say that much in a physical meeting. And I think that raises a lot of opportunities to actually include so many more in the discussions, whatever that could be around.
And giving voices,
and
as
invite
you
them.
said before, yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So, and I think, I mean, daring to do that as a, whatever you are, leader, whatever, at a different company's organization, whatever, to invite, you know, to have views on whatever you want views on, or get involved in product development, what do I know, services, democratic issues, politicians, I don't know what, but you could use this in so many more real ways. And I think that could be really interesting to see what that could lead to.
It sounds really cool also to be experiencing this real-time shift.
Yes, it is an exciting time we're living in right now to be able to experience this. How do you see that it's going to? Because I think we can't go back to the same. Like, what will be different when it comes to understanding corporate culture and leadership, and because there is something to learn here about connection and authentic conversations,
and also what you mentioned, Jasmine, connected to what we call the environment. Maybe we realize that we're part of that. So
exactly.
And I guess there is a awakening, more or less, almost as a revelation.
And I'm thinking also, I mean, for the first time being also a teacher, I'm questioning the moral implication of thinking in terms of having courses in English in Sweden and having people coming from all over the world flying and moving to Sweden. And actually the first time I ever had that thought is that, well, if people are coming from African countries and other countries, we are actually depleting them of their competence, because
we do.
We know that when people emigrate,
and the context also, context also, because you need a context.
And we also know that when people emigrate and move to a new country, they will find love or someone else, and they may remain, right? So we are actually, it becomes for the first time a moral ethical question for me of how we are leading and creating organizations and education and
But I have one thought about that, maybe not necessarily connected to the education system, while I do believe we will see a change in that as well. But I'll come back to that. But I would say that one shift that I think we will see in leadership in general, and I think you were talking a little bit about that before, in this paradigm shift, is that I think that what we need now is much more of those kind of leaders that can have a lot of ideas and different thoughts in their heads at the same time. I'm not saying that this will be, women or male or whatever, but those that can have multiple thoughts in the head at the same time, combined with being very agile and moving fast and understanding. I'm not running, but moving forward to understand that things are not just, like an Excel form, which I do believe a lot. If you see as a traditional leadership, you have a form that you kind of follow, and you can see those that have taken the really the politicians around the world now that have more like they want to show power because they feel like they have, made a good decision, and it's not well thought through, would I say. And you see the other parts of leaders that are maybe stepping up now, that have a lot of things in their head at the same time. And I would say that is the future, because the world would change constantly. We have seen that going on for the last, I don't know how many years, but we have kind of in our minds, or those at least at leading positions, in their minds, the world looks like it did, like sometimes even 190 years ago,
For me, when you talk about this, is a dynamic leadership, a feminine principle, which we probably had well,
Maybe-
previously we lost it, so now we are finding
or-
coming back to it.
Or maybe finding the balance. I think what I'm
Yeah.
hearing is also like we're living in a more complex world, and that complexity requires something else of us. And I think if we have lived in a very masculine-oriented world,
Yeah, definitely.
we are starting to embracing the feminine, and that masculine and feminine alignment means that we're becoming more capable of handling complexities, I think, also because it is all about being present in the now.
Definitely, and another way to put it is that we have had a static, and now we are going into more dynamic. I
Yeah.
would say it's the same, just another word, which means that
Yeah.
moving into dynamic is embracing ambiguity, for instance, instead of having doubts or
Yeah.
being
Stuck
worried
in
for,
fear
or
or-
stuck in fear. So
Yeah.
embracing I mean, it's an accelerating change curve, but if we can see it as a possibility curve, it will be a fantastic opportunity for us as humanity, and also as a world where humans are just one living form and not the only one. As when we look back, that could be what was really the thought. We didn't think of it that way, maybe,
Yeah.
but looking back, I would say we were acting as we were the only species
Yeah.
alive.
It's great, Stella, because now you're bridging into the conversation we're going to continue in, which is very much about our capacity to live in alignment with nature instead of being the, how do you say, when we are using the nature and actually living on the nature instead of living with the nature. So, Jasmine, some final words from you before we start?
Yeah, well, just I think it's even though it's a little bit frightening out there due to a lot of other things that our health system won't cope, but in one way, I think it could bring out a lot of good ways, new thoughts and opportunities if we just dare to grasp them and just not put the head down in the sand anymore.
I agree.
So that's.
So
Yep.
Being courageous
Thank
is
you.
about being open-minded. Thank you so much, Jasmine, for being here with us. I very much appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care.
Have a good. You too. Bye.
Bye. That was really wonderful, Stella.
Yeah.
Now, and it's fascinating in some way how we are bridging the whole day. I started to bridge, and it just there is a flow.
Yeah, definitely. And I was thinking of when we spoke to Jasmine here, how you organize. I mean, the way to organize is also part of the leadership. I mean, if we organize in a certain structure, we have to embrace that kind of leadership. So, for instance, if we organize in hierarchical system, we have to have that type, maybe the static, patriarchal, typical formal leadership, and now we're moving into more dynamic forms and more dynamic organizations.
And it really gets me chills because while we're waiting for our next guest, Agneta, I want to introduce her for you.
Oh, okay, that's nice.
Because she is, she have done a 10-year research on women history. So she's really an expert into understanding the whole patriarchal structure, the time age we've been living in, which they call the time of Pisces, and now we're entering the time, from an astrological point of view, the time of Aquarius. And obviously that shift is happening right now, like this month, basically. And some people have anticipating this shift for a long time and been talking about it. And Agneta Nyholm, she has spent a lot of time into understanding the dynamics, how this time of the Pisces created a system that was controlling the feminine and suppressing the feminine, and also being very violating to and abusive to the feminine because
and the feminine is the earth.
Yeah, exactly.
In older
Yeah.
or ancient wisdom or ancient thought models. So
Exactly.
yeah, that's right.
So I'm hoping we have her.
Yeah, maybe we should
Yes,
text her something and say that she is welcome on the show.
She is welcome in the show. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
so
that's a good way to do it.
while you do that, I can talk a little bit of our own experience since the last 2.5 years, where we have built an organization based on dynamic structure. It's called Emprogage, and it stands for Empathy, Proactivity, and Engagement. And you were actually taking part in the beginning of when we created the company. You remember that in 2018 in January you were part of a
Yes.
that was the starting workshop,
Yeah.
and then we have met in various ways during those years.
Yeah.
So, but today it's a fully working a company for consultants. So again, relating to what Yasmin said, there is a purpose with it. For us, it's to work for what is best for the world by consciously choosing then empathy, proactivity, and engagement. And again, as Yasmin also told us, that then there are tools to do it, and the tools are services like consultancy services or educational or explorational programs and so on.
That's great.
So yeah.
Now we have Agneta.
We have,
here.
okay.
Agneta Nyholm.
Are you there?
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome.
Hi.
I have Stella Nordahl here in the studio with me. We are so happy to have you here. And I was actually introducing you briefly, and I was saying you are an expert on understanding women history, and you have spent 10 years doing research on that. And I think your research is important in a way to understanding where we are right now. So could you start, please, tell us a little bit about that and how you're seeing what's happening right now, the relationship.
Oh, that's a huge topic, but
yes.
it's very interesting to see how you treat the earth is very similar to how you treat women. So it's if you go back for, let's say, 6,000 to 8,000 years in the Middle East, you can see that before that they honored women, and they honored the goddess, the Mother Earth goddess. And when you come to our culture, it's about around 1,000, 1,500 years. And before that, we also honor the goddess. And I don't know what fruktbarhetsgudinna. What's that? The earth goddess.
Fertility goddess, yeah.
The fertility, yes. And the earth was so important, and I think that's something that we have forgotten, that the food comes from the earth, and then you need to honor the earth. And the fertility also comes from the women's body. Yeah. And that's also, they are going together, the earth and the female body.
Yeah, and it's something about the worshipping the earth and thanking the earth for the food, but also worshipping the woman and honoring the feminine.
Yes, and something that occurred to me the last year when on my research is also that how important also the men are, and the sexuality, because I wasn't aware that they had that the sexuality was in the center of it, but it's quite obvious. If you want fertility, you need a man also, and you need a masculine part. If you come to animals.
Yes.
So if you look at the script, what is it called, the scriptures of the stones? So I don't know the word for that. Hellristning.
Yes, yeah, I think it's scriptures. It's the scriptures you find.
If you go to the Stone Age or the Bronze Age, it's you can see that is that they had a very strong connection to sexuality. You can see it on how they portrayed the men.
Yeah, the symbols
and with erections and you see a lot of things is going on around the sexual intercourse, not maybe the intercourse, but how they looked at it in a different way.
Yes.
And I see if you honor sexuality and you honor the both the men and the women's body, you also have a sacred connection to the earth.
Yeah, that's really interesting what you're saying here. And there are, as I've heard of it, when you, for instance, when we can call it abuse Mother Earth, because we take up the oil from the inner core of the earth and so on. It's actually what's forbidden in older systems to do that kind of abuse on the earth.
Yeah, really fascinating. And I'm thinking also the masculine and the masculine and the feminine. I mean, that is something that is part of our human history. It's part of what's creating life. So, so for many years, the feminine were suppressed and not seen and not heard, and with that we had a increased violation of the earth as well, and we become the abusive of the earth in our culture. So now we have this corona virus. And I shared a poem on my Facebook page a couple of days ago, which was it was a poem from Mother Earth, and saying like there was violent fires and when you didn't listen, but now you listen. So what is happening? And I know that you also writing a book about Leadership 3.0.
I don't know if that's going to be the title, but it's it's a work title for it. But it's a new way of looking at leadership, because you really need to take the nature into consideration. You need to put leadership in evaluate in another way, and I think that's the missing part of it. But before we come into that, I would like to say one thing about the study about the female history and the goddess history and the sexuality. I really believe that if we could bring peace to and some kind of sacredness again to sexuality, I think most of the problems in the world would solve itself. So if we honor our bodies and honor each other and the sexuality, we will also take care of the earth again. I think they are very deeply interconnected, and when we live very separate from our bodies and in each other and look at sexual as something, if you look at pornography or the abuse of that, you don't really. I really think that that's the missing part of humanity. And if we solve that and heal that part of that, all the rest will come by itself.
Well, I was having a conversation with Erika Mikaelsson previously today, and we were talking about that, how we live in disconnected from our bodies, and when we become disconnected from our bodies, we get numbed, so we lose connection with our feelings and emotions, and it's all in line with, if you're sexually open and connected to your physical body, you also get a whole new toolbox of understanding yourself and your feelings, and becoming also more intuitive, which is also something that is great for leadership.
Yeah, and I'm also connecting what we're talking about now to a conversation I had yesterday with Jens Rinnelt in one of the other programs here also. It was the FEED program. We were talking about the separation as inner and outer, which is quite a new idea in the Western world. It's just 300 years old, and by doing that separation and only valuing what was called the outer world from Descartes, it is actually it's suppressing everything that has to do with this dynamic part, or we shouldn't even call it a part, the dynamic functions as the dreams, the fantasy, the intuition you mentioned, everything that we actually experience every day, but we don't see them.
Yeah, and
sounds like music.
Yes, and Agneta, I know also that you have been talking about the importance of graceful living, and I saw this TED talk you were doing, and you asked people in the audience. You started your TED talk with asking people, put your hands somewhere on your body. And most of people, when they respond to this,
I said put your hand at point at yourself, or put a hand on yourself, and they always touch the same part.
Exactly.
Yeah, interesting.
So
I was thinking when you told
always
me.
put their hands on their heart. They don't touch their elbow or their
I automatically did it at the same.
If you point at yourself, you always point at the center of your heart, the center of your chest. So it's I think that's where it begins, and also the heart is the when
where your embryo, your everything is built around your heart. The heart is the first thing that is developed in the body, and everything comes from that. It grows from the heart.
Yeah,
So the first
I
thing you
really
see with
believe
embryo
this,
is a little ticking heart.
and maybe there is the connection to what we can call the soul, or whatever we call it. And there are many ancient in ancient wisdom. This is something that is well known and well explored, and esoteric systems and so on.
Exactly. So what does the grace mean for you, Annette, when you talk about graceful leadership?
Graceful living and graceful leadership is it's a mindset, it's an ideology, and it's a way of living very close to your heart, and to honor and respect yourself and people around you and the earth, and to just say that grace is maybe God. I don't know. I seldom use that word God, but it's something that is. There's like wisdom. It's like we have wisdom inside us, and it's not knowledge that we have in our brains, but we have some kind of wisdom inside us that if we just slow down and relax, we get in touch with our hearts and the wisdom that is inside there, and then we start to live graceful.
Exactly.
That was very beautiful. I really like that explanation.
And I think it's big because I like it when you're saying the grace, because it opens up. It's a different word I never heard been using before in the context of leadership. So for me, it opens up a whole new understanding of like it's not about only being present, but it's actually about being aware that we are a soul. We are a soul. We have a purpose here on earth,
and gratitude often seen as something that is that had already happened. You should show gratitude to something that is or was, but it also forms a way, or a proactive way forward. We train ourselves in an attitude where grace then is embracing stuff. I really like that. It was very beautiful.
It is. And
I think grace is a lot about connection. That if you have connection to yourself and the things that you have around you, you automatically become graceful. But if you get what is the opposite of connection? Disconnected. And if you're disconnected to what you eat and what you have around you and people around you, or your body or your sexuality or your husband or your kids or whatever, it's if you just get connected, but it's also quite painful to get connected, because then you get in touch with all of life, and life is about life and death and sorrow and fear and love and happiness. So you have to be prepared to feel a lot more. It's very easy to live up in your brain and only think about things, but when you get in connection with yourself, you feel a lot more, everything.
Agneta, you are also the founder of the Sophia Institute, and many people don't really know what Sophia really means. So maybe say something about that first. So then I have a question, because I would like to embrace this topic a bit. So Sophia.
Sophia is the Greek word for wisdom, and it's always in a feminine form, and feminine and masculine. Feminine is not about women. It's a part of us that are more soft and use our imagination and are more creative and use your fantasy and your wisdom, and it's a feminine part of us. Well, doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman.
Yeah.
But she's pronounced like a she. It's a she. but you never ask who is Sophia. You ask what is Sophia.
Yeah.
So it's the wisdom that lives inside us, and for many thousand years now in the Middle East, and I think go back to thousand year in here in Scandinavia, you are not been allowed to use your own wisdom. You have not been allowed to have your own connection with God or talk to. You need to have the priests and the Bible or the scripts between you and or the church between you and that divine wisdom. So it's interesting now that Sophia is waking up again.
Yes.
The knowledge about Sophia, because I think it was 1935 when the Gnostic what's it called, the texterna, the Innan Gamadi, the Gnostic texts, and then Sophia came back. The knowledge about her.
Yes, and me who have been studying alchemy also, I'm seeing that the Sophia is the mother of us all, because it's the divine wisdom, as you're saying. And then when I realized that the first artificial intelligence, the robot that also became a citizen of Saudi Arabia,
her name was Sophia.
Her name is Sophia.
Oh, Sophia, okay.
And so I was thinking that must mean something.
Yeah,
that
definitely.
must mean they have they have knowledge, because it's not a coincidence.
I think it's a very. I haven't never heard it before, but I get goosebumps when you say it, because when it comes to artificially intelligence, what's it called, intelligence,
Yeah.
intelligence, and I think it can be really, really good for us, but it can also be really, really bad. But it depends on what forces are what forces we are using, and if you program artificial intelligence with wisdom, it can create magic, really magic. But if you use other forces when it's developed, it can be something completely else, really disaster. So I think now if the study is saying something that that we can maybe have full artificial intelligence in, let's say, in 30 years or something like that. But now the coming 10, 20 years, I think everything is about to get people to use right forces, to healthy forces, and to be kind and really cooperate and use your heart. So that when it comes, we are prepared and we will do it in a good way. But there are strong forces in the world that is really demanding artificial intelligence to go that way. So there are a group of very powerful people who sit on a lot of money.
Yeah, but if we should be congruent to what we said before, if we really believe in those feminine principle and the masculine principle, I would say as long as we believe that artificial intelligence is finding a complex system and increase the computational ability, that for me isn't life. It's not the feminine principle, it's the masculine principle with a high computational ability. So for me it's not coming alive, it's not close to anything called soul. But that's how I look at it. I don't say it is, I don't know.
For me it's quite a neutral thing that we can, if you for example, if you're handicapped, you can program artificial intelligence to work for you in that matter. But then it's a
script again.
So it's what you put into it.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a neutral thing from the beginning, but it's what goes in.
Yes.
What forces that lies behind it that will really
and that's
make it a good or a really bad thing. But we probably see a lot more of the digitalization. So we really need to think about what we're doing.
Yeah, and that really speaks to the importance of the engineers who are part of creating this technique.
Yeah, but that's but Maria, there I wouldn't say disagree on that, but it's not up to technicians or technologists or whatever we call them. It's up to us as humanity, and I would also say that I mean, right or wrong, I don't know. But when we left in this Western world society, we left the religious behind. I wouldn't say it's right or wrong, but when we did so, we also lost an ethical framework. So what we're lacking right now is and we need to create an ethical framework very quick, and to use that when we take our decisions.
So maybe this is the opportunity for creating an ethical framework in a whole new way that we have never seen before in our secularized world.
I believe that a really important thing what we say when we lost our religion is to go back to the timeless principes of spiritual timeless principes that is equal for all of us, and like say love, respect, responsibility, humor, generosity, all these things that is the same for all of us, but it's like the language of the heart. And
I would like to come back to that with you, Agneta. I haven't met you before, so I'm very glad that we got this connection here today. I want to continue to elaborate on what you're actually saying. That is one of the ideas I think can help us in an ethical framework. So maybe we can talk on that, you and I and more people. And I also have a person I want to connect you with. Emma Malmsten is a name that comes up in my head. So afterwards I will see that you get in touch with each other. Concerning the Sophia ideas.
That's great. So we are running out of time. Agneta, it was wonderful to have you here, and I'm really happy you could join. So thank you so much, and we will connect you. I will connect you further with Stella, so you will have new contacts for the future. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting and a beautiful dialogue, I would say.
Thank you.
Oh, I agree. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye. So now it's you
Bye.
and me again. Bye. Now it's you and me again.
Now it's you and me. It's time to wrap up because our time is ending. Did you learn something new?
Yeah, I definitely did. And I would say we always do if we have dialogues that are open as this one. And thanks to both Jasmine and Agneta. And I would say... in those dialogues we can explore together, we can elaborate. So keep up the dialogue. That's a good tip.
I think it's also something about when we have become so secularized that we have lost our connection to our soul. We need to find new ethical ways of how we want to be as a society, and I think that's something we have been lacking in the Swedish society. What it really means to be a Swedish citizen.
And then also and then connect to meaning and life itself.
Life itself and to each other. Okay, thank you so much for watching. That was super fun.
Yeah, thanks for being for having me as your guest. I'm so thankful for this. It was fantastic. I'm honoring Mother Earth. It's Earth Hour tonight.
Exactly.
I don't know if it's, I guess it's a different time as during the day because it has to be in the night. But here in Sweden it's in a couple of hours. So we're celebrating Earth Hour also by shutting down all the systems.
Exactly. And we are switching tonight to summertime.
Yeah, that's right. Daylight saving.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Living in, we are competing in, we are repeating in, we are believing in. It's time for us to shift our mind from best in the world to best for the world. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. It creates a new world to mind a shift, intentionality, perceptuality, conceptuality. We are choosing to shift our mind to best for the world, best for our world. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional.